You're standing directly in front of someone you've met before, maybe 3 times, maybe 4, and their name is just gone. Not hovering at the edge of your memory, not buried somewhere you could dig it out, just absent, clean, like it was never placed anywhere to begin with. And the worst part isn't even the forgetting itself. It's the 12 seconds that follow, the quiet performance of it, the subtle shift in your body language, the desperate hope that someone nearby says it first, or that a phone rings, or that literally anything happens to dissolve this moment before it becomes what it's becoming. You smile, you buy time, you survive it. But here's what almost nobody talks about. The people who do this most consistently, who forget names not occasionally but chronically, are not careless, they're not rude, and they are almost certainly not as unintelligent as a part of them has quietly started to believe. There is something very specific happening in their brains. And once you understand what it is, the guilt starts to look very different. Start with the moment itself. When you meet someone new, your brain is not idle. It's running several processes simultaneously and running them hard. It's reading the person's face, tracking their tone, calculating context, where you are, why you're both here, what the social dynamic is. It's registering whether this person seems to like you, whether you like them. It's already searching for what you're supposed to say next. Your working memory, the prefrontal cortex's short-term holding space, is juggling somewhere between 5 and 7 things at once. And into that exact moment of cognitive overload, someone hands you a single arbitrary sound. "Hi, I'm Steven." Steven. Okay, Steven doesn't mean anything. It doesn't connect to a concept, an image, a sensation, or a story you already carry. It just sits there, isolated, unattached, in a brain that is, frankly, too occupied to babysit a floating syllable. Psychologists actually have a name for this. In 1987, researchers McWeeny and Ellis published a study demonstrating what's now called the Baker-Baker paradox. They showed participants a photo of a person. One group was told this person worked as a baker. Another group was told the person's last name was Baker. Days later, the people who learned the occupation remembered it far more reliably than those who learned it as a name. Same word. Completely different retention. Because baker as a profession activates an entire network. Flour. Early mornings. Warmth. The smell of something rising. As a name, it activates nothing at all. It floats there, rootless, waiting for a connection that never comes. Names are semantically empty by design. They were never meant to carry meaning. They were meant to be assigned. And your brain, which is an efficiency machine above all else, holds on to things that mean something. It prioritizes ruthlessly, constantly, without asking your permission. Think about the last emotionally significant event you attended. A funeral. A wedding. A moment where something shifted. You probably remember the specific quality of the silence in the room. Who ended up crying unexpectedly? A single sentence someone said that landed somewhere deep. The particular way the light looked at a certain moment. What you almost certainly don't remember is what was printed on the program. The order of service. The list of names in the margin. Your brain made a decision, silently, automatically, about what mattered. And it was not the text on the page. It was never the text on the page. Names are the order of service. Everything else about a person is the funeral. But here's what most people never notice, and this is where it becomes more personal than most people want to admit. A significant portion of chronic name forgetters are not people who are checked out during social interaction. They're people who are extremely inside their own heads during it. Not from arrogance, from something closer to the opposite. While the other person is introducing themselves, there is an internal narration running in parallel. Am I making enough eye contact? Too much? Was that handshake too firm? Did I just interrupt them? Do I seem nervous? Do I seem like I'm trying too hard to not seem nervous? The name enters the room, briefly, and then the internal monologue moves directly over it, like a wave washing over sand. This was documented as far back as 1973. Psychologist Malcolm Brenner identified what he called the next-in-line effect. People waiting to speak in a group showed significantly reduced memory for what the person directly before them said, because mentally they had already moved on, already composing, already editing themselves in real time. People who live with social anxiety, or even just a hyperactive self-awareness, are essentially stuck in that mode permanently. Never quite here, always half a step into what's coming next. And the moment a name is handed to them, they're already somewhere else. This isn't a memory problem, it's a preoccupation problem, and those are very different things. And it's worth staying with the other side of this for a moment, because the person whose name gets forgotten feels something real, and it would be wrong to move past that too quickly. Having your name forgotten, especially repeatedly, lands like a small but pointed message. You didn't matter enough to stick. That's what it feels like. That's what the brain hears, even when the rational mind knows better. The brain doesn't always take the rational approach, but here's what the person who forgot your name was probably doing afterward. They were thinking about the conversation. They remembered what you said about your sister, the specific way you laughed at something, the unusual take you had that stuck with them in the car on the way home. They were present for you. They just weren't present for the label. And this is the thing about memory that most people fundamentally misunderstand. It is not a recording device. The brain does not store experiences the way a hard drive stores files, clean, intact, retrievable on command. It stores impressions, emotions, patterns, fragments of meaning. It prioritizes based on significance, not sequence. High emotion, stored, unexpected, stored, connected to something already known, stored. One arbitrary syllable delivered at the exact moment you were busy performing composure in front of a stranger. The odds were never good. People who forget names easily often share something else. They tend to be highly associative thinkers. Their memory is contextual, layered, richly textured. They remember stories. They remember the expression on someone's face when something important was said. They remember atmosphere and feeling and the emotional color of a moment. Ask one of these people what someone was wearing at a dinner party 3 years ago, and they might actually tell you. Ask them the name of the person standing beside them in that same memory. Blank. Because their brain was busy cataloging everything else, everything that carried weight. This is not a flaw in the architecture. It's a particular kind of architecture. One that is genuinely better suited to emotional attunement, to the kind of listening that makes people feel actually understood, not just processed, to storytelling and pattern recognition and the slower, deeper reading of people, and worse suited to the specific, narrow, mechanical task of holding an arbitrary label under social pressure. It doesn't look dramatic, but it changes everything about how you understand what's happening. The technical fixes exist, and they work when applied. Saying a name back immediately after you hear it, connecting it to a face you already know, or an image that sticks. Building manually what the brain won't build automatically. A bridge between Kevin and something that already has a place in your mental landscape. These strategies work because they're doing the meaning-making that the name itself doesn't carry. You're giving it an address, somewhere to live, but the shame spiral, the quiet, persistent belief that forgetting names makes you someone who doesn't really register other people, someone who moves through the world without leaving room for anyone else. That belief is not the truth, and it's worth naming that directly because a lot of people carry it for years without ever stopping to examine where it came from or whether it's actually earned. You are not absent. You are not dismissive. You are someone whose brain prioritizes differently, gets captured by its own internal weather, and sometimes fails at the single least significant thing about a person. The arbitrary sound their parents chose before that person had done a single thing worth knowing. Here's the thing about a name. It was assigned before anyone knew who the person would become, before the laugh that's completely specific to them, before the way they talk about things they love, before the particular shape of how they think. The name was always the least of it. What stays, the texture of someone who they actually are underneath the label, that part doesn't live in a syllable. It lives in everything else, in the impression they left, in the way the conversation moved, in whether something they said changed, even slightly, how you thought about something afterward. That's what memory keeps, not because it's sentimental, because it's efficient, and the people who lose the name but hold everything else, they were there. They were paying attention, just not to the part that in the end mattered least.